Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tonight we're going to take a look at the W King D9. Now, the D8 was a very popular speaker, has been arguably the best budget Bluetooth boombox. So we're going to see if the D9 is an improvement. So let's get right to it. So here we have the W King D9. This is the next in line, if you will, after the D8 had been a very popular speaker, still is. This one's a little bit different as far as the way it's designed. As you can see, we now have a dedicated hard handle as opposed to the strap. The other one, I wasn't a big fan of the strap on the D8. I prefer a handle, although this handle is kind of cheap. It's very flat, has a little bit of just plastic design, nothing underneath. The build quality is pretty much like the D8. It's kind of basically a cheap plastic, nothing fancy. The layout's the same. It has two woofers and then two tweeters, and then you can tell the grill's about the same as the D8 was. Now, on the back, they went from passive radiators on each end on the D8 to now just has one large passive radiator in the back that's exposed. Not a fan of that either. I would rather have something covering that rather than just a exposed passive radiator. If you do something like the Viton R7, same thing. You can see that it has a exposed passive radiator over a large area of the back. Don't really care for that, but that is what it is. And behind the flap here, we have a USB-A for charging, a auxiliary jack 3.5, SD card, and your USB-C to charge. Now this thing is supposed to have a 1200 milliamp battery, or 12,000, excuse me. So that's a pretty big battery, and charging through USB-C, this thing takes forever to charge. It's rated at 7 to 8 hours to charge from dead. When I got it, it had 2 of the 3 lights on for the battery. I charged it for like 4 or 5 hours before. It was brutal. It's brutal. If you're wanting to use this thing, it does not charge fast at all. That's one kind of a drawback. Now down here, it's kind of hard to see beneath there. They kind of put it in a bad spot. Your NFC pairing. Control-wise, got your power button, minus and plus for volume, and track back, track forward if you long press. Play button and pause button. And that also is to take calls and hang up calls. That's your EQ button. Now, seems like the D8 supposedly had 3 EQs. That's what this one says, but to me, it just seems like you have one that's more bass heavy and one that's more treble heavy. I don't notice a third one, so maybe I'm just crazy, but it seems to me like it just has 2, like the D8 did. This one seems to be more like a bass mode. A little bit, it's not really warm, but it's not as bright. The second one has less bass with a brighter sound. It's almost too bright. I don't like it. So basically just the default one is the one I use without pressing it to go to the next one. Now, the sides of it are kind of weird. It almost looks like you could have a strap on it or something, but there's not any place for a strap. There's your underneath. And this speaker, some of the features of it, it's a 60 watt speaker, so it's up the power a little bit. It's IPX7 waterproof. It does have TWS. Of course, I said it charges with USB-C. NFC, as I mentioned. Now, you can't pair this to more than one device, which is kind of a drag. I'll go ahead and start it up, power it up. That initial thing, that's too loud. I should have toned that down. That's your noise when it's connected to your phone. Now, as you can see, I guess you can see maybe shadows on there, but there's the lights right there by the EQ. That tells you your battery life. So, the next question is, how does this thing sound? We already covered some of the stuff, like the batteries. I'm not wild about the battery. You can't pair it to more than one device. And another thing that kind of annoys me is it does not sync with your phone volume. So the phone volume on the speaker is independent from your phone, which I have no idea why they're coming out with new speakers in 2020 that don't sync with your phone, because most all phones for the last few years have that feature. Most of them, most of the decent phones, Samsungs anyway, have no idea why they don't do that. That's stupid in my opinion. But some may not really care. I think if you keep it on full volume, which is what I usually do, and then adjust for my phone, it'll stay on full volume when you turn it back on. So at least it does that. So to hear how this thing sounds, what more would you expect than to compare it to, yep, you guessed it, the D8. So that's what we're going to do next. This bright mode. Now I'm going to stop it there. I can already tell, you guys probably can too, this is at 40%. The D8 has a much fuller, richer sound to it than the D9. The D9 actually sounds a little thin and has a little bit of hollow, kind of that hollow resonance kind of sound to it. It's kind of strange. Let's go up to 60%. We're still on the D9. Okay, I'm going to switch it to the D8 and then adjust the volume up, because I got to do that every time. Okay. Change track, stay on the D8s. Still at 60%. Now I'll stop there again. I hope you guys are hearing this. This D9 is not hanging with the D8, at least in their EQ1 mode. And I'll tell you right now, if you put that W King D9 in EQ2 mode, it's higher. It has a higher frequency response. It's very skewed to the treble, and it has even less bass. So this W King that I have, the green one, I have also the black with a silver grill. I like it. It sounds better than the other W King that I have. That's why I put this one up against the D9, because that's the better of the two. Let me go up to, let's see, 100. No, we won't do 100 yet. We're going 80%, and we're still with the D9 over here. Now, when you get higher volume, the D9 starts to come alive a little bit more. That's 80%. So I don't know if they did some DSP difference, something different with the DSP than they did with the 8, because the 8 seems to be fuller at lower volumes. We're going to go ahead and change tracks and just go to 100% max volume. We're still on the D9. Now they're closer together. So what I'm gathering, at least anyways, is the W King D9 sounds worse, inferior at about 60% volume and lower. You get up to 80%, it starts evening out a little bit more. So I don't really think this thing's a huge improvement, if any. I mean, I think the D8, at least that green one, like I said, that green one is better than the silver and black one that I have. And then the silver and black one doesn't play quite as loud, doesn't have quite as deep a bass, and it's a lot higher. The EQ2 mode's almost useless. It's too high, to me anyway. It has too much almost grating, ear piercing, especially at higher volumes. Let me switch the EQ mode so you guys can hear what the second EQ sounds like. We're still on the D9. We change track. That's the second EQ. That's the first EQ. First EQ has a much deeper sound to it. EQ2.
Watching the people, they're moving, intercepting for the chronicle. Holding.
So to me, EQ1 is by far the better EQ. Because if that thing at lower volume sounds a little thin with EQ1, EQ2, it sounds really thin. I'll just watch this. I'll go down the volume.
My teacup, I'm sipping on the sound of the
This is 60% volume.
sharing secret life.
EQ2.
I got to feel, baby, magic. The mistake life.
EQ1.
We're rolling down the second of the universe. Slide heavy, slide heavy.
So you can tell that EQ2 to me almost is pretty close to worthless because it zaps a lot of the bass. So anyway, if I'm recommending speakers, the D9 is like, I think it's 80 or 90 bucks. There was a 30% coupon. I think it's 90. I got it for like 62 or 63 because there was a 30% coupon. So you can get it for that. It's a good speaker. It does have some drawbacks. Like I said, the charge time. Of course, the D8, it takes quite a while to charge too. But if you can find the D8, I found the silver and black one when I had a code a while back. I got a second one of those for 40 bucks. So to me, I think the D8 is probably still better. I don't see if anything, they're close. And at lower volume, like I said, I don't see the D9 being better. I see it definitely being a worse performing speaker at 50-60% or less. Higher in volume, they start to even out a little more because the W King D8, when you get higher in volume, it'll start losing a little bit of its bass at higher volumes. But if you're going to use something indoors, if you want to use this indoors at 50% or less, the D8, I would recommend getting the D8. The D9, it's a good speaker, but I'm not that impressed with it. Let's just put it that way. I don't think it's bad or anything. It'll end up going on sale. Who knows, before too long, it may be 40 bucks too. But as it is now, if it's 90 bucks with no coupon, I would pass. I would actually take that Soundcore Motion Boom, which I'm going to probably compare those two here shortly. So anyway, that's my take on it. You can gather what you want from it, but as it is now, I would not really recommend the D9, especially not at $90. I would still get the D8 if you can. I don't know if they're all the same. They may not be, but get the green one because the green one sounds better than the two silver and black ones that I have. So anyway, like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it, and hope you guys have a good Christmas. And that's a wrap.